So guys, back in June I was lucky enough to catch up with the lovely Amanda Mc Guinness from the blog Little Puddins. She's an Irish writer and she's a mum to multiply diagnosed children with autism. So she came on the air to discuss with me her experiences as an autism parent. So here's the interview.
There was nowhere or no one to turn to at the time. So that's essentially how it came about. I just wanted to help other people that may or may not have been in my position as I had been, say, 4 or 5 years previous when Conor was diagnosed.
Yeah. Can I ask you, Amanda, to date, what has been your greatest challenge, I suppose, first of all, to date?
I think that as a parent, is it?
As a parent is,
I suppose, what could I say really? I suppose there's so many challenges. I suppose really it's just, in particular, Conor, knowing that he still can't talk. It's possibly highly unlikely he ever will talk now. He also has an intellectual disability and other diagnoses as well, so he's also developmentally delayed. So I suppose for me, occasionally, I think parents will tell you, occasionally it does hit you that, you know, I have a lovely niece, Chloe. She's the same age as Conor. It's only a couple of weeks of them apart. Oh, she's the nicest little girl. And sometimes when I look at her and Conor are only a few weeks apart, like she's thriving, she's in school, friends, she's doing X, Y, and Z. That's kind of what hits me when I see kids his own age, and I see Conor would occasionally still be in nappies. He's not fully toilet trained. We've been trying.
Yeah.
You know, he comes forward a little bit with pecs and with love and different ways of communicating, and then he kind of regresses again. And it's a constant battle to get him, as I said, to leave his own world and to come into ours and to trying to help him to progress.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge is always trying to forget that, not to kind of compare him to people his own age or children, and not think he's not making their milestones. Just let him make his own milestones. Remind yourself when it hits you, and what I mean by when it hits you is when you go, oh gosh, you know, he should really be able to do what my niece does, or kids in the neighbourhood his own age, but he's inside, as I say, playing with a Fisher-Price toy or putting on a nappy on him, you know, those kind of things where you just kind of go, oh God. That's probably the biggest challenge, is just to keep going when it's very tough to say.
Well, I suppose, Amanda, the very first thing I'll say to you is thank you for sharing that, because oftentimes people talk about ASD and they talk about the child that is very high functioning or so on and so forth, and people talk about the voice of autism being the person with that is verbal or whatever. But I suppose a lot of parents then, because of that, they find it a little bit more tricky to speak about those kind of challenges, about toilet training in an older child. And I know a very close friend of mine, actually, one of her greatest wishes was to hear her little boy's voice. So I suppose that thank you for sharing that, because I think there's a lot of people feel like that across the world, really, not just in Ireland but across the world, parents that are dealing with autism on a daily basis. Do you know? So that's the part of autism that people need to be aware of as well. Do you know?
Yeah, sorry, Jack is just pulling up. I literally have to hide, because if he hears me, I'll have to get off.
Okay.
Like playing on the phone.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second now. Oh no, hold on. I got him. Oh, I'll bring him in. Okay, sorry now.
No, you're absolutely. This is.
You know, it's the autism world.
This is live.
Sorry, no, live on air.
Great, it's great.
He's in a fantastic school, Knockrisky Autism Unit, and he gets the bus to and from school. And only for them, I don't know, I suppose that school as well, I don't know what we would have done without them either.
Fantastic.
So, as you say about, children like Conor that wouldn't have had a voice, like that was another major milestone for us.
Yeah.
So when he started in Knockrisky Autism Unit, that made a huge difference to our life, because there wouldn't be a whole lot of services around here in Mayo. Now, things have, for some parents, they've been lucky enough to get some services, but for Conor, he wouldn't have had, we'll call it, an abundance. So we were kind of left for a while anyway. Vanquished as far as services go. And once he started in Knockrisky, they were ahead of us, steps ahead of us, and they were giving us advice, and we'd come to troubles and whatnot. So that's another thing that has helped us along the way, is Knockrisky, I have to say.
Good. Can I just check in with you, Amanda, just before I ask any more questions? Are you still okay to speak with Jack being at home? All is okay to continue?
I have my mom is inside with.
That's perfect. I don't want to cause any upset. No, that's perfect.
No,
that's perfect.
Not at all. Oh, no, not at all. No, I'm sure I had to bring him in and lock the door, because that's what a lot of parents tell you. Well, Jack then, it would be the opposite of Conor. He goes to, Conor and Jack, after they go to an amazing, if you're in Mayo at all and you need a fantastic therapist, Kira Kyo, ABA.
Fabulous.
Jack was the same as Conor. He could not speak at all. He is and was extremely aggressive, where he's lashing out because he couldn't talk. So we started Jack going to Kira Kyo. She's in Westport, County Mayo, and she's absolutely amazing. She just did so much intensive therapy with Jack. Now more or less talking I won't say as good as every other child in the world, but he's talking
fluently.
He'll say, "I love you, mommy." He asks for what he wants. He'll bring up things to you, show them to you. Whereas 2 years ago, it was like a grumble or like that's all he was like a usual noise and lashing out. So like. And the thing with him, though, why I have to just, in the middle of a phone call of one, I bring him into the house, because if he sees a car or anything with wheels, he'll bolt for the car. Bring him in, because my mother obviously is elderly, she wouldn't be able to grab him as quick as I would. So I tried to see would he go in without me, because my mum was standing there, but then he was watching cars coming up and down the hill where we live, so I just said, I best just bring him in case he's quick enough.
No, I love it. I actually love it, Amanda. This is autism in the real world. I actually love it. I think
if we didn't have the door locked, he'd be killed.
Yeah, out the gap and out the door in front, and no understanding of cards.
We have to have the house highly. It's like, as I say, lockdown. Once Connor or Jack are up, even at night time, for a couple of years, I've been sleeping on the couch essentially for years, because Connor in particular used to wander around the house at night time and try the doors, and then he always had this fear. I think every parent does, that they'd get out. But again, in a sense, because Connor has an intellectual disability, he wouldn't get it straight away to get the key to get out. But boy, would Jack get the key and get out. So even at night time, we always leave our bedroom door wide open, and have multiple locks on all the doors in and out and the windows in case they'd get out, because where we live is on the main road, and he'd bolt and be it's like a horror story what could happen if they got out of the house.
I know, but they're lucky that they've got a mom who's so on top of things that the doors are locked.
My husband has if he wants to see good with DIY, I don't think there's many locks.
In fairness. Tell me, Amanda, like you're speaking about both your little boys there now, and obviously you have 2 other children as well. How do you juggle such a varied set of needs in your home on a daily basis?
I think the best thing I ever did was marry my husband, because we're definitely best friends. Because it takes 2, and actually it would probably take an army to keep an eye on them all and do everything you have to do. But it's incredibly hard as a parent to know you could be doing more for each of them, but you have to balance it out.
Yeah.
And because the boys have extra needs, I don't say they come first, but 9 times out of 10 they do come first, because you just have to get to, if it's Jack trying to run out the door, or Connor, maybe he needs his diaper changed or whatever, and you don't want him to go, there's a thing called, I'm trying to think of the right word, if they mess around with their stool, I can't think of what the name of that is called, clearing or whatever. Sorry, now in the middle of any lunch, listen to that, but so the things like that would have to take priority no matter what. So if Hayley's shown me, she's very good at art, and they've shown me a picture, I have to go, Hayley, give me 5 minutes, I have to run. And it always catches me, then I go, I feel bad that I can't give her that attention she deserves all the time, like every child deserves. And I'm sure every parent, whether the kids with or without special needs, you have that guilt. But I do carry a lot of guilt that I'm not doing the best I could do for them.
Okay.
But I suppose I don't even want to call it balancing out. We're just basically, I think any parents would say, stressed to the gills all the time, trying to look after the kids with special needs. Like I have a 9-month-old, trying to make sure I'm helping him, keep an eye on him, and if there's anything coming up with autism related, that I can keep an eye on him. It's just, I say, I'm married to my husband, and I'm so glad because we're best friends, but it's extremely hard. We're both essentially carers for our kids.
Yeah.
We're carers first, and we're looking after the kids and doing the best we can for them. But it's extremely stressful. I know I was at my brother's 30th lately, and it has been, I don't know how many years since I've properly gone out anywhere. But again, myself and my husband, we don't go out anywhere together. It's been probably since we got married, the last time we were anywhere together.
Okay.
But there was photos and things taken, and I had these 2 black marks under my eyes, and because I'm not one for the mirror, or I wouldn't have the time either, but I wouldn't be one for pictures either. If it was a good filter, maybe. But I looked at a picture of someone had taken, and I said, "Ma'am, what is that? What's with my eyes? That's a shadow." She said, "Ma'am, Amanda, there are dark circles in your eye," and they looked black now, and I put on a bit of makeup. And I was like, "Why is it like that?" She said, "Amanda, do you get any sleep?" And I was like, "Well, I suppose I don't." And she said, "Well, that has an effect."
Exactly.
So we do the best we can, but I think any mother or father or care of adult child with special needs will tell you it is extremely stressful, and it's extremely hard work, and it's high stress 99.9% of the time, trying to help them. Like Honor needs constant helpless communication, constant toileting, trying to help them get dressed, everything you can possibly imagine any child or adult would need, we have to help Connor with all the time. And then we also have to help Jack and make sure he's not lashing out, make sure we're following his behaviour plans from Ciara and Connor as well, and trying to push Connor to keep using his communication and using his daily life skills and all that, and then also giving Hayley time, and then also trying to keep my eyes on a baby who's trying to crawl and bite in the hand himself, doing everything you would naturally do with a baby. So I don't know if I call it a balancing act, but I'd say we're highly stressed.
I know. I suppose in our house I've got 6 children with multiple and different needs and stuff. So I actually get that chaos and that absolute trying to watch one guy here while the other guy goes that way, and that kind of madness that ensues. I suppose the one thing that I will say though is that you're doing it. And you're obviously doing it well to say that your children's needs are being met absolutely every day.
I hope they are.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I definitely feel it necessary to comment on is that you say that you feel guilty, that you worry that you don't meet everybody's needs and so on and so forth. I think that's a running theme with every parent of a child with additional needs. And actually, we have a saying in our house, special kids for special moms or dads. There is nobody that can do the job that you do with your child better than you.
Thank you. So kind.
Do you know? So I think that like we're great people for beating ourselves up and thinking that we're not doing something good enough and so on. And actually, do you know what? We're kind of doing okay too. We're here, like you and I are chatting on the phone today. We wouldn't be able to do that were we not able to offer something.
My mom wasn't inside, I don't think I'd be even able to do that, because Jack would have the phone gone looking for something on YouTube Kids.
Yeah, I know. YouTube, tablets, phones, you name it, they go missing in our house too. Amanda, can I ask you, do you have any advice for somebody who might be struggling with their own mental well-being, I suppose? As a parent, like in the wake of an autism diagnosis.
I think the one thing I've learned in the 8 years is that you have to, and I know this sounds so silly because where do you get the time, but you have to in some way, even if it's only one thing that you like to do, and I mean, I can't even tell you what I like to do because generally I haven't the time to do, but if you have one thing, it's like an escape. I think every parent, I think as regards the diagnosis, I think the thing I would say is, if you're facing something tough, what I always say to myself, and somehow it seems to work, is that as bad as it is today, say if you're feeling down about the diagnosis and you don't know, like, nobody, even if you didn't have a child with special needs, even if you had a regular child, you don't know what the future holds. And what I always say to myself, yeah, it's pretty bad today, but a year from now, who knows? A year from now, who knows?
How many steps forwards will the child have
like
have
2
made?
Years ago, I thought I was going to have 2 sons that couldn't talk. I couldn't tell you how I felt. I was just completely heartbroken. Not because of the diagnosis, but because I thought, well, that's it now. I'll never hear them talk ever.
Yeah.
Yes, Conor still can't talk, but because of Ciara Keogh, thanks be to God, he is communicating in the best way he can right now.
Fabulous.
And I know with her help, he'll progress. But I think the one thing I would also say is, one, to try and always say, okay, it's pretty bad today, tomorrow's a new day, get up tomorrow, it'll be a better day tomorrow. And a year from now, this won't even be on the radar, because we'll have overcome so much.
Exactly.
And to also say, try not to compare your child to any other parent's child or any other child in the neighbourhood or on TV or whatever you think your child should be doing. Just focus on what your child can do now, because they really will surprise you. And as a parent, dealing with all that goes on in a house with children with special needs, I think you have to find one little thing, whatever it might be, that helps you. I always say it helps me refocus, that when it's up the scale with stress and everything going wrong, or whatever's going wrong in your life, have one thing, even if it's like to read a book, try and get an hour, as I say, if you lock yourself in the car to do it, or go online, or as I say, chat to other parents, go on to like the likes of Irish Autism Mammies, Autism Mommy. There's another one, whatever, Autism Mommy, I think it's the American one, or the one that my friend who's American set up, Glenda, years ago. Go on to those, talk to other parents, that's fantastic. But if you can't do any of those things, you don't have access to online, find one thing you like to do when your kids are at school, or if you've got someone that could even possibly help you. Try, and if people do offer you help, take it. When Conor was really small, he would have been, I was told by his service providers, he was one of the most severe, he was one of the youngest diagnosed, but one of the most severe cases of autism they'd seen in Mayo at the time. I don't know what happened since. And the one thing I had was my own family would come in and visit me and help me. But my friend Caroline, she's a guard, she used to, God help her, she'd be doing her training, she'd come down, and she used to come into the house, she used to call me Mandy. She'd say, Mandy, give me the baby. This is now when Conor was, you'll say, screaming, and he has and had insomnia. She'd take him off me and tell me to get out of the house and bring Hayley with me, because my husband was working. I said, no, I have to. She's like, get out of the house.
Fabulous.
So I take Hayley, go for a walk, go for whatever. And so when I came back, then it wasn't so stressful. It wasn't so hard. Or my friend Emer used to come and be like, right, come on, we'll go walking. And I wouldn't want to leave the house because you know yourself, and you're up the gills with kids, especially, and regular kids as well. You don't want anyone to see, you don't want to hide. You're like, no, we'll go walking. So we just and walk the road.
Great.
So get out of the house. If you have a friend, if you have a family member, they offer help or advice, take it.
I think they're very wise words, that sometimes we tend to think that we have to do absolutely everything ourselves, when in fact it is okay to say yes
and talk to people.
Do you know, exactly.
I have a brilliant family. My husband's family have been so good with my own family, my parents, my brothers, my sisters, my sister-in-laws. Like, even actually, my sister Dana and my brother Jason are getting married in July, and even though I know Conor and Jack wouldn't have been fit to be page boys, it was so nice. They asked us that if they couldn't do it, they didn't want anybody else to be page boys. If our boys couldn't do it, and they had other little boys they could have asked, and it was such a lovely thing.
Yeah.
To thought of them. Even though I know it was too much for the boys on the day. Things like that, like your family, they don't forget you, they think of your children. Like, you know, it's very important to feel you can talk to your family members, and that they can, that, you know, think of you too. Like, they asked their kiddies, even though most likely they probably wouldn't have been able for, but it was such.
But still, to think of them is so.
I also know there's a lot of parents out there, single parents. There's parents, or let's say married couples, not even married, whatever situation they're in. They may not have family to, you know, lean on. So lean on your friends if they're willing to help, or if you haven't got even that, go online. There's
find your tribe. I always say to people,
there's thousands of people, parents, Irish, English, US, whatever the nationality, willing to help and talk and chat in the same situation as you. And that's where blogs and things like that come in, where you can just read along. Even if you're isolated in every other sense of the word, you can read, you can
and you don't feel as isolated.
And that's very important as well for your mental health.
Absolutely. Listen, can I ask you, Amanda, what advice would you give to a parent who has some worries that their child might be on the spectrum?
My advice would be to go to your GP or your public health nurse, and just, I think for a lot of parents, they don't want the label. Not a lot of parents, but I've met parents, because I am a part of a group called the Mayo Autism Support Association, which is fantastic, and I'm so proud to be a member of it. I'm so glad to have all these amazing parents that I can call my friends. They're just fantastic. But I think that if you have that fear, I think, of a diagnosis, don't, because the way I look at it, if you're having worries, talk to your GP, talk to your public health nurse. The worst thing to do is do nothing, because it's not helping your child. And even though I have to say there may not be any amazing services out there, and if there are, I don't know where they are. But I think if the child is having difficulties, the main thing is that the child gets help. And even if the help is through online research, through talking to other parents, if the child needs to be, you know, seen and have a diagnosis, it's important that happens, because we can all stick our head in the sand and say, oh, my child doesn't have these problems. And even when Jack was showing signs in the beginning, I was saying, I don't think, maybe, and because I was so hyper aware of autism and symptoms and worrying. I don't think I ever had my head in the sand, because again, he was diagnosed just after he was 1, because I was so alert to what he was doing, and I was watching him and whatnot. But the main thing for me was not that he had a label or whatever came along with that, it was that he got help. And again, I was kind of blind to the fact that things had really and now there's so many children now diagnosed with autism. I thought maybe things had been, like when Conor was diagnosed, there was help, and he got great help in the beginning, but things have deteriorated as the numbers have gone up.
Exactly.
The services can't, as you say, supply and demand, it isn't matching. So then I assumed once Jack was diagnosed, that'd be fantastic, he'd get some help. You know, I wasn't isolated anymore, that's how I time set up the blog, all those kind of things were different, but actually the services weren't there. But luckily, again, as I say, if it wasn't security, my son wouldn't be talking today, he wouldn't be in school, he wouldn't be thriving. Now, he has major difficulty still, but the phone call to the school is only a moment away, a phone call to here is only a moment away. But the main thing is that he got a diagnosis that when I had doubts or thoughts and worries, I had him assessed. And you know, same with Max. The whole time I was pregnant, I was saying, oh my God, you know, you see parents and they're going for the scans. I was nearly worried and numb and saying, worries. And then I eventually said, well, what if he does have special big deal? We'll face it like we face everything else. And the main thing is that we help him to be the best human he can be, not the best neurotypical, not the best autistic, not whatever. The best human he can be, and as he grows up, the best man he can be. That's the way I look at it.
Fab.
The best person he can be. That's all I want for any of my kids.
I know. I spoke to somebody recently who said that there tends to be that people don't realise that actually it's urgent. Children are children only for a short time, so there's no point in sitting on anything and waiting for something. You do it for your child. And I know people do get caught up in labels, but I do think that it's really important, as you say, not like I always say in our house, knowledge is power. If you know how your body functions, you then know how to best suit the needs of the child. I think, and sometimes we tend to worry too much, and actually you're nearly better off just to plough through and deal with whatever your emotional stuff is once it's done.
Say a year from now.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't want my child to be diagnosed. Okay, but if your child doesn't get diagnosed, and I'm not saying the services there, because God knows that they're few and not too many on the ground, but what is available, if you're lucky enough to get any, and if you can afford to go private, if you can't, private therapy is, oh my God, it's so expensive. I know that only too well.
Yeah, I suppose I would, like, for me in my house, I went back to college, I studied, I learned, I did lots of different kind of training pieces myself, so that I can meet any of my children's needs in any way I need myself, so you
retrain. Like,
exactly, you kind of learn as you move forward.
Become a mini therapist yourself.
Exactly, Amanda, I have two more questions for you, for you, if that's okay. The first one is around siblings, I know you speak about your small little guy and your little girl Hayley. Just a couple of pointers or tips that you might have for parents who worry about siblings of children with special needs.
I think what I learned, especially when Jack was diagnosed, because at first it was just Hayley and Connor and Jack, and as far as Hayley was concerned, Hayley and Jack, Connor had autism, but Hayley and Jack didn't. And it was when Jack was diagnosed, I didn't think, and I don't want to say didn't think it would bother her, but it really, really bothered her, because the first thing she said was, "But Mom, who's going to take care of me when you," I'm crying now, "when you and Daddy die?" And I said, "What do you mean?" Because that was the first thing she said. She said, "Who's going to take care of me? Because I know when I get older, I have to mind Connor, and now I'll have to mind Jack."
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, my heart. And I just said, "You won't have to, Hayley. I'll always, you get old and you'll die." And I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
To be aware that even though they're not telling you what they feel, that things like this may be in the back of their minds.
Of their heads, yeah.
So that's one thing I'm more aware of now, for her to still remain a child. Like, she's 10 now, she loves art, she's into singing, she's into things like that. I try to push her into the things she likes to do, so she still remains a child. Like, she in herself is like a mini carer. Like, she would help more than any other child her age would probably help, because she has two brothers with special needs.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of that and trying to pull back and make sure I don't have her doing things. Not that I intentionally mean to, but I'm like, "You wouldn't do this for me, Hayley, blah, blah, blah." I'm trying to grab this for Jack or do this for Connor. So I always say, try and push her outside, push her to see your friend. She's a fantastic friend, Frida. Go see your friend, or go with lovely neighbours, Shane and Amy. Go play with the kids. Things like that. But I always try to say to myself, to remember that we're stressed, she must feel the stress too. I'm worrying about the kids. Until she said that to me that day, I didn't consider that she was... No, I had never said to her, "When we get old, you have to mind your brothers."
But that was obviously in her head.
That was on her mind.
Yeah.
So I think that whatever you're feeling, of course, it's the feeling in the house, as I say, the atmosphere in the house.
Yeah.
I think she too would pick up on it. And I'd never in my life ever said to her, "When we die, Hayley, we hope you'll mind your brothers."
But I suppose the positive in that, the positive in that is that your small girl is going to be one of the most exceptionally kind, considerate and caring young ladies. So I know
6 when she said that.
Like it's a challenge, but it's also, I suppose, kids that are living in an additional needs household learn to be so much more understanding and so caring and so kind. So there's always that positive.
Yeah, and one thing I will say, and we learned that this year, is that to make sure that, like Hayley, I brought her to the cinema last night, so we have our own time away from
the madness. Yeah.
She has her thing that we call it Hayley and Mom time, and she does things that my husband do, Hayley and Dad, and they go out playing. I couldn't kick a ball if it was very hard. They have to do football, so that's their thing. They do that, and they go places themselves. And we've brilliant grannies and grandads. She goes to Granny Guinness and Granny Golden, and she always has her own time that isn't anything to do with anybody else. They're her special things, and that's what she likes to do. Granny Golden got her tickets to Taylor Swift. That's her special thing. That's her big special thing we're doing summer. So we're doing that. I think that's next week, actually. But that's her special. We always have one thing every summer that's just for her to do, so she knows.
Fantastic. I suppose that's validating her and letting her know that she's special in amongst all of this.
And she's important too.
Good.
And the thing I was going to say there as well is, people have family days out, and you're trying to mould your family into whatever a family day out should be. What we learned this year was we're family of 4 now, which is even hectic, and you had a family of 6. I don't even know why I'm saying it's hectic. You know what hectic is.
Exactly.
But you're going on a family day out. What we were trying to do was make sure we had these whatever inverted commas family days, that we go to play centres, we go on day trips, whatever. And what we've learned recently is that Connor's finding it just too much. He likes to go to quieter places and, you know, less kind of sensory overload type places. So what we've had to do is decide that on certain days we'd only bring Hayley and Jack to places they like, and other days we go as a foursome. Other days we don't bring the baby, or other days Connor and the baby stay with Daddy and they go somewhere more chilled out, like they go for a walk in the woods or things like that. Don't feel guilty that you can't bring all your children to wherever it is you want to go, or all your adult children, whatever age they may be, that it's okay to say, my child does not like to go to these play centres.
Exactly.
So we're not all going to stay at home. We're going to work at that. My child that stays at home is still going to do something that they really enjoy, and my children that really, really, really want to go to these places still get to go.
They still get to have that opportunity too.
What I say to Hayley and to Jack, and Jack probably doesn't comprehend it fully yet, but what I say is, today is a Hayley and Jack day, and so that means we can spend the day out as long as you want. We'll do whatever you want. We'll have a great fun day, and we go away with our cousins, or the kids' cousins, Sienna and Savannah, a lot too, and that's really good. And with Chloe, so we're having a bowling day in a few weeks' time, hopefully. So that they get to meet their other cousins too. And then I say on the days with Connor, I say, today now, if Connor isn't able to manage it, we're going to say as long as Connor's happy to stay, and hopefully it'll be for the day, but it may not be for the day. But you know that today is a Connor day, so that means
that's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, we can come another day. And it's from talking to other parents, because I had such guilt that I posted it actually on the blog, on my Facebook blog page, and parents, a few commented, but more messaged me privately and said, we do the same, and it's just a balancing act where you have to say, ideally we'd love to have it where we all go and it's just like the movies, we have an amazing, you know, adventure, we drive home and everyone's happy, but the thing is, if everyone's not happy, how do you balance that?
Look, Amanda, that's the reality, and houses with or without autism, you're never going to please everyone, do you know?
I know, don't worry, there's 11 of us in our house, how my parents did it.
Exactly, jeez, God, I thought I was bad with 6.
The journey's home.
Listen, Amanda, I suppose my final question for you actually is, where can people find you?
Well, I have the website, which, to be honest, I haven't updated it in about 2 years, but all the information is there that I put on. It's a lot of personal stuff, like how we manage with Christmas when you're, like Connor, as I said, like Fisher Price toys, like what you do when you're walking down the aisle and how you feel. It's more about my perspective as a parent, and there's loads of content on there, loads of links to other brilliant websites and support groups, things like that. There's our journey with the 2 boys, things like that. So that's littlepuddins.ie, and then the Facebook page is just the Little Puddins blog. And someone asked me before, why would you call it the Little Puddins? And that's because, to me, whether my child had special needs or didn't have special needs, to me they're all the same anyway. There's just one might have a few extra things they need help with. And you know, the real Irish thing saying, oh, look at the little puddin. And I'm like,
exactly.
And whether he's 8 or he's 80, Connor and Jack, they'll be my little puddin. So much me and Max, no matter what their abilities are or not.
No, I literally had a conversation with my 21-year-old son about 2 hours ago, talking about, well, you might be my adult boy, but you're still my boy, and you will be my boy forever. Do you know? So I think that's an Irish mammy thing too.
Yeah, the pudding, like, of the house. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Amanda, I'm going to have to let you go. I absolutely loved speaking to you, but I have another guest to get on to. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well done for all you're doing there. I think it's an amazing show, and you're helping so many families that are just listening in and thinking, I'm not on my own. So
perfect.
Well done to you.
Thank you.
And well done managing a house of 6.
Oh, jeez, we'll say no more. Listen, Amanda, thank you very, very much, and I've no doubt our paths will cross again soon. Take care.
Take care. Thanks for everything. Bye-bye.